Welcome to Podcapers, the official podcast of a place to hang your cape. And this week, where we're going, we don't need roads. Oh wait, that's the wrong time travel thingamajiggy involving a Flux thing. We're talking about Flux! Cue the music! Hello there, Capers, and as I said, welcome to Podcapers, the official podcast of a place to hang your cape. My name's Scott James Merridew, and this is the show where I talk about various geek and nerd-related topics, and I'm joined each week by a very special different guest. I am joined by a writer of page and screen. Give it up, Capers, for Pete Rogers!
Hello.
How are you doing, Pete?
I'm doing okay. Yeah, I'm doing okay. I'm going to get a slight heart attack every now and then because of the many fireworks in the background, but other than that, I'm all right.
Yes, you see, Capers, Pete and I made the brilliant scheduling decision to record this episode on the 5th of November. Now, many of our international audience might be wondering, well, what's that got to do with anything? It's just the 5th of November. Oh, no. It's an important holiday where we celebrate the capture, foilment of a dastardly terror plot, torture, and then death of a deadly Catholic terrorist. Which sounds weird, but it's important to us, and we celebrate it by lighting bonfires, burning effigies of the man, eating toffee apples, waving sparklers in the air, and setting off fireworks. So if you hear loud bangs in the distance, on either my side or Pete's side, don't be alarmed. We're not filming in the Middle East or some other horrible war zone like, I don't know, America. No, I'm just joking. It's just fireworks. Honestly, nothing to be concerned about. Frankly, I've had enough to be concerned about lately. Speaking of concern, how was your Halloween?
It was all right. It was good. Yes, we had a record number of trick-or-treaters come to our house, so I was mostly opening the door, giving sweets to small children, which any other day of the year is breaking in terms of my parole, but on that night it's acceptable.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. I spent Halloween in a castle avoiding monsters.
Oh, nice. I think you win on the. I'm not an expert, but I think you win.
No, you win because you had a nice time. I did not have a nice time. It was a harrowing ordeal, and by the time I got back to Edinburgh from the Scottish Highlands, I missed the Edinburgh Fire Festival.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Have you ever been to the Edinburgh Fire Festival? It's amazing.
No, but it sounds good. It's just the name is enough to evoke both Edinburgh and fire and a festival.
It's the Selwyn Fire Festival. It's going on for a couple of years now. They recently moved it from the historic Royal Mile of Edinburgh up to Calton Hill, that rather slightly iconic-looking view of Edinburgh that you sometimes get. So you see pictures of. That's Calton Hill, and unfortunately, it's annoying because it's great because it's got like fire jugglers and stuff, and big like processions of half-naked painted pagan people screaming at you. Like, what's not to love?
Isn't that just a Friday?
That is an average Friday in Edinburgh. Yes, exactly. Yes, but this time they've got fire. So, right. It's official. It's official. But I wouldn't know because I missed it because of our shenanigans that went on in the Highlands with the dreaded collector. But enough about that. I want to talk about you. But before we do that, we've got to get into the news. So, 5th of November, Halloween, we could talk about lots of stuff related to those sort of things. Instead, let's talk about something that I probably should have mentioned earlier on this show, but been a bit busy and had other stuff to talk about. I want to talk about something that's been in the news recently, the Jeremy Renner controversy.
Ooh.
Oh, yes. You thought it would be a safe space on this podcast. You were wrong. Because it seems to be getting worse and worse. All the allegations being made against him. First it was death threats, then it was abuse, then it was that he put a gun in his ex-wife's mouth. Now it's that he bit their baby that is now in a huge custody battle over. And now this has put a pall over the potential Hawkeye TV series that's fast approaching. Thoughts?
Oh gosh, this is me in the line of fire, literally.
I'm waiting to see what the consensus is before I make my own.
I think these things are difficult because the court of public opinion based on allegations is a difficult one. Like, Mel Gibson stuff. There was a recording, and it's like, okay, yes, there's terrible things there. You've got the Johnny Depp thing, which I was a typical keyboard warrior of like Johnny Depp. Why is he being cast in things? And then you go, oh, actually, that wasn't at all what we thought it was. So I don't know.
I mean, so here's the thing. In the UK, at least, we have a presumption of innocence. I mean, here's the thing. I'm not going to go into too many details about it. I think I've mentioned this once or twice before, but a while back, I had to do jury service and for quite a serious court case, and they drill it into you. Just look at the facts. Don't be swayed by emotion. Innocent until presumed guilty. Innocent until presumed guilty. So I've very much taken that to heart. So, but here's the thing. I find a lot of the time that innocent until proven guilty gets sort of twisted into the person who accused this person is lying until they're proven not. And I think that is a very, very bad thing to think.
I think it's a very difficult line, isn't it, between and I don't know how to explain this without, but you've got to believe the person that is making the allegation, but at the same time give the benefit of the doubt. And it's very hard to do both, particularly in the binary black and white world that we now live in. That there is a line of like, well, there must be a reason you said this, but big fan of evidence.
Exactly. And here's the thing: when it comes to should you believe them, should they not? I think you just shouldn't make any assumptions. Don't assume they're telling the truth. Don't assume they're lying. Just take what they said and, run with it. Yeah, as you say, if there is evidence, if there, presumption of innocence, but don't presume anything on behalf of the accuser, because that doesn't enter into it, I think.
I think there's an element with this, if it was, say, Chris Evans or Robert Downey Jr. or Chris Hemsworth, people would probably be straight away saying it can't be true. But because it's somebody playing a character that I think a lot of people aren't as bothered about on screen, I'm not necessarily one of those. That I think there's kind of maybe people's just leaning slightly more the other way. I don't know. It's difficult. It is the court of public opinion has become such a big thing, and I don't think it's a good thing personally.
No, I prefer to leave it to the actual courts, the ones that actually matter. And I'm not telling people what they can and can't think. I reserve that for my opinions on Disney films. Like, then you fucking listen to me. Then you obey Daddy Scott. But in this instance, yeah. So, but here's the thing. Now it's looking like the Hawkeye TV series might not happen. There was, I think it was Haley Steinfeld was up for the role of Kate Bishop. Now she doesn't know what's going on with that. And
the thing is, though, there was talk. I say there's talk. Someone on Twitter said it, which suddenly has become an opinion, but it's probably some random person with like 30 followers was like, oh, they're going to recast it. Well, in a way, because that show is passing the baton on, you could almost do it without him. You could almost just pick it up, but she's Hawkeye now. Yeah. And you wouldn't even have to concern yourself with it either way.
Yeah, there's lots of ways around you could do it if it turns out he did do all those things.
Exactly.
Or some of those things. Or even just one of these things alone is bad enough.
Yeah.
But so it's tricky. But I think if we're going to talk about it, let's talk about it in a constructive, legal, and most
grown up
way. Exactly. Let's be grown-ups about this. Let's not assume anything on the part of these accusers. Let's not presume guilt on his part, nor should we immediately leap to his, saying there's no way he could have done it. Yeah, he could have done it. He could have done it. Or he could not have done it. I think assumptions are dangerous. Facts and evidence is what you need. And we've talked about this before on the show about cancel culture. I don't like this idea of cancel culture. I believe Alex Mirabal has talked about cancel culture, and Kit Puttygates Horsley has talked about it, and it is dangerous. I think the big one was recently I don't know if you kept up with the Pro Jared thing that went on. Familiar with Pro Jared was, for those of you who don't know, was a gaming YouTuber, talked about like video games and stuff, and was accused of lots of nasty stuff going on with him, him getting involved with someone else's wife, and inappropriate relationship with fans, and a lot of people basically said, oh, this guy is awful, and he lost a record amount of subscribers. Lots of people talked about it. Lots of other YouTubers got lots of other views off of talking about how much of a bad person he was. Then it turned out that all that kind of stuff didn't really happen, at least not in the way everyone said it did, because he kept quiet about it and then produced a butt-ton of evidence exonerating him, basically. I mean, I'm very much condensing and simplifying a much more complicated thing just by talking about this. But if there's one thing that we all hate to do, it's eat humble pie. We want to be righteous and vindicated and, decry and, condemn a person for doing an awful thing because it makes us feel a bit better about ourselves. I know I'm very much guilty of that when I talk about films I don't like. But we're not infallible. We can turn out to be wrong, which is why we need to hold back. And this is the problem. I don't think the problem is necessarily largely on individual people, although as I say, people going on Twitter and spreading this stuff doesn't exactly help matters. The problem is the tabloids, the news sites, or the pop culture sites, who basically hunt for clicks.
Yeah, and fan the flames. But I think as well, you said then, other YouTubers were getting views from kind of damning what he was alleged to have done, but I wouldn't be surprised then if they were doing another video afterwards saying, "Oh, now that the trouble is every type of content, if it makes you have a quick emotional response, will generate more clicks and more content, and we're in this kind of loop that it feels like will never end." David Bowie was right. His predictions about the internet, I think, are all coming true.
Saying about the internet?
David Bowie, many years ago, was interviewed by Jeremy Paxman, and
Paxman.
Really early days of the web, and he was basically, this is going to change culture forever. This is going to change the way we think, change the way we interact, change the way you can influence people. It could be the greatest thing ever. It could be the worst thing ever. And Paxman was like, "Well, no, it's just a delivery system. It's just, also it's like a letter, but on a screen." And he was like, "No, it's not. It's the equivalent of an alien invasion. It is changing. It will change the whole of society in the next 30 years.
And bear in mind, societies have been changed by single letters. Like, that's how they declared wars back in the day. So, it is huge, and whole collective cultural unconsciousness, mass consensus, all this other stuff. It's a much, much trickier and tougher and much more interesting subject than one we could potentially devote time to on this silly little show about me ranting about stuff I love and hate. But so we're going to move past that. I just wanted to bring it up and add discussion in what I hope is a positive way, and we'll track this as it goes. Whichever way it does go, let's see how it goes. Thank you very much for engaging me in this discussion in a grown-up way, Pete. However, like I said, we like to talk about stuff we like to talk about stuff we hate, so let's talk about stuff we like, starting with Flux!
Hurrah!
I like it, but before we talk about it again, we need to talk about something else. You! Who are you? What do you do? What's your place in the world? The great orators of history write about your name, what shall they make of you? Hero or villain?
Oh, hero. Underrated hero. There we go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I am. I don't want to say I am me, which is the strangest thing to answer to a question of who are you. Yes.
Together.
That's what I was going for. So yeah, I guess I'm a writer of sorts. Written a fair few things.
You are a writer. You're a writer at this point. Come on, man.
Yeah. So what have we done? The interactives from Marcosia a few years back with artist Luciano.
Fired upon.
Oh, I know. It's like every time I give myself a compliment, someone shoots me.
Yay, go Pete!
Yeah. The interactives with artist Luciano Vecchio, who's currently doing Ironheart for Marvel and has done some Avengers stuff as well.
Oh, wow.
It was early in his career, worked with him. Did a book called Intergalactic Adventures of Zach Ridley that I co-wrote also for Marcosia. I've done a few one-shots here and there. I did a book last year for Taya, who used to be the lead singer of Nightwish.
You say that like I know who that is.
Okay, you might know, you might not know. It depends how much you're into.
My musical taste is very eclectic.
If you're into Finnish symphonic metal, then you would know who Nightwish are.
Well, I am, dear God. Let's be honest. Who isn't into Finnish symphonic night metal?
The people shooting at me. That's who I'm guessing.
Oh God. You've done so many things, and yet This is the first time you're crowdfunding. I feel like I have to shout over it.
Yeah, I know. Sorry.
No, it's not your fault. I feel like this is the first time you've had to crowdfund a comic, though.
Yeah, I mean, I self-published. Back in the day, I set up Orangutan Comics back in, when was that, 2007, 2006? Because what basically happened, I started writing and I've been sending stuff off to small press publishers. And I was very fortunate that people were saying, oh, yeah, I'll publish that. I thought, oh, this is quite easy. And then one by one, it's like, oh, the artist has dropped out, or, oh, we've decided to stop making comics, or I've just decided to randomly stop replying to your emails. And I just thought, I've got all these stories that were kind of people liked, but they're not going ahead. How frustrating. So I created an anthology called 11th Hour, because they'd all been cancelled at the 11th hour. Do you see what I did? And we put, you see. Put that out. This was back in the days when there was one comic convention in the UK rather than one comic convention a day in the UK. So back when Bristol was the centre of the comics universe in Britain, and went there.
Can I just say that is a weird place to make the centre of British comics? Of all places, Bristol, really Bristol? It's too close to Wales. Well, actually, say that you're calling.
I'm in Cardiff.
Aren't you? Yeah,
I am indeed.
And for which you have my deepest sympathies.
It's quite handy for me. You see, it's just over there. It's just over there, just across the way.
It's just across the way, back in civilization. Yeah. You know, you're only on the outskirts of Mordor. You're not, in Barad-dûr Central.
This is true. Well, there's no bridge toll anymore, but there was back then. It's all changed.
Not only did you have to suffer the indignity of going to Wales, you had to pay for the privilege.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm sorry, a bit of a hatred of Wales, as regular listeners of this show may remember. So, I don't apologise. I'm not sorry. You live there, you know.
Well, I'll set Dan Harris on you. That's my plan.
Hey, he designed the logo for us. No.
But that's true. More for him. So went to Bristol, launched the book there. It got nominated for an Eagle Award, which was nice. And then I've been doing stuff ever since, really, bits and pieces for different small publishers. And then, I guess the reason I spent the last kind of 6 or 7 years. People quite often come up to me at conventions and go, "Hey, didn't you used to write comics?" And I'm like, "No, I still write comics. I haven't stopped. I basically decided that I was kind of moving up through the small press and indie publishers, and then I wanted to kind of aim bigger. So I've been pitching basically for about 6 or 7 years. But what that means is I've had very little come out, so people assume I've stopped. But and we got to the point, I'd co-written this book with a friend of mine, Steve Arian. He's a fantasy novelist, and we've written 6 or 7 different pitches together, and we sent them to different publishers, and we got really close with loads of stuff. And this book actually was with a reasonably large publisher for a while, and then logistically certain things changed, so we couldn't carry on. But we basically got the point of we can spend our entire life pitching, and people go, "Oh, I wonder if they ever wrote comics," or we can actually just get something out that people can read, which is kind of the idea.
It's nice when you make something that people can read.
It is. As a writer, it's kind of, otherwise you're literally just sat at a keyboard. It's just like this weird, strange hobby of you talking to yourself in your head.
I could be outside right now.
Exactly. Well, no, I'm not a big fan of that, if I'm honest.
Oh, yeah, Wales, dear God. You're safer inside. Unless the dragons get you.
It's true. It's dragons and rain. One of the two will get you eventually.
I'm getting Duke of Edinburgh flashbacks, dear God. Okay, so you've done that, and that culminated in Flux. Now, it was Steve Arian, not Arian, as I thought it was once originally, and I got very concerned.
Yeah, he does that. Yeah, I think he has talked about getting a pen name because some searches kind of will block his name in emails and things, assuming that it's not what it is.
Yeah. I mean, it's like going to a party or something. It's like, "Oh, who's this? Hello, my name's Bob Nazi."
Yeah.
It's
no, it's not Nazai.
It's Nazai.
It's Robert Nazai.
Oh God! But I mean, problematic name aside, he's the guy who came up with the original idea. But you were the sort of the missing piece for Flux, weren't you?
Apparently so, according to Steve. Yes. So we'd known each other for a long time. We'd been at tables next to each other with our own comics, and then Steve got himself an agent for his novels and has been really successful. He's had 6 fantasy novels out. He's won the Hellfest Inferno Prize. He's done really well with that. But I was actually a guest on his podcast talking about the interactives when that book came out. And at the end of the call, he went, the way you're chatting and about your work ethic and how you work, I wonder if we could maybe try writing something together. And off the back of that, we did. This book we did initially over kind of like Skype calls and emails, but then it was a thought bubble, I think. We ended up, one of us, the old cliche, but it was great fun. One of us hunched over I was going to say typewriter. It wasn't a typewriter. It was a MacBook. One of us hunched over a laptop and the other one pacing up and down and kind of bouncing stuff around. So particularly this issue was pretty much broken story beat wise that way, which is really good fun. It's co-writing it's an interesting thing to do, and it's very different.
It fascinated me because maybe it's because I'm a horrible person to work with or something, but I've never really collaborated in that way before in terms of writing. It's weird because I'm very much of the opinion that I do not like auteurs. I'm all for a clear creative vision, but I see any sort of media, any sort of storytelling as a collaborative art. And yet when it comes to sitting down and actually writing with other people, I'm just like, here, my stuff is the best. Mine. We need to focus on me. It's all about me. Yeah. And that's why I have a great deal of reverence for people who actually make that sort of collaboration work.
I think there's an element of that in me as well, because I also write my own stuff. I've been very conscious to write my own things as well, so that I'm not purely co-writing, especially as Steve's got his novel stuff going on. But I think that what came back is I was quite often being a sounding board for other people. And it's that age-old thing. You can have a problem on your own script and you'll spend weeks trying to solve it. Yeah. Someone else shows you it. You go, yeah, it's that. It should be that. That works. And there's a smugness to that as well. If someone shows you a script, yeah, I've solved it. There you go, give it back. And I've always done that for other people. So in a way, when Steve came to me with an idea, I was like, and my natural disposition is to try and break stuff, just to try and see what's wrong with it. I'm quite a
Let's see what the goop is inside.
Am I a pessimist? Am I a realist? Someone once said about me, they said, "Oh, is he a glass full or glass empty kind of guy?" They go, "He's a glass is half full, but it's probably poison," kind of guy, which I quite like. So I will tend to try and break something. Just what's the ways it could not work, and then by doing that, try and find the ways that it can work. So I was doing that for other people, doing that with Steve, and then it became, I think in a way, we've worked on like 6 or 7 ideas, some of mine, some of Steve's, but this was quite, not easy, but because it wasn't my idea, I wasn't as emotionally, if I was sending stuff to certain editors and stuff and I get notes, it can be, it can still be crestfalling. But if it's someone else's idea, I just went in and tried to break it and try to work it and try to see what we could do with it. And then it does help that we're friends. Yeah. If we didn't, I don't know if I'd want to co-write with a complete stranger.
Well, I guess it's like you can have a certain amount of professional distance. Like, so if you did say something, you wouldn't necessarily hurt each other's feelings and you wouldn't compromise the working relationship. It's things, different people, different writers, different creative types, all work differently. There's no set formula, because if it did, then every single movie would be structured in terms of the behind the scenes in exactly the same way. You can't do that. I've recently, had writing opportunities that we're working with other people, and it's been a very interesting experience for me. So I find it very interesting when you have something like this, but instead of it imploding people's faces, it works out really, really well. And Flux works out really, really well. What I've read of it, I've only read the first issue, but so far I like it very much. Although I will say one thing.
Oh, okay.
Someone's seen Time Cop.
Yes, we both have.
That's it. That's all I got. Negative criticisms, mildly, vaguely, tangentially, slightly similar to certain aspects of Time Cop.
Well, there is time and there are cops. So
that's basically it.
The problem may lie.
Yeah, because it doesn't help that I kind of like that sort of stuff. Do you know what I've been getting into? I've been really getting into lately cyberpunk. Like I kind of like cyberpunk just because I watched Blade Runner years ago and I thought, ooh, this is cool. But I've never really got into it in the same way as I have till now. Maybe that's because I started watching like some of the behind the scenes and trailers and stuff for the new video game Cyberpunk 2077. Have you seen any of that stuff?
No, I don't know. That's not the thing with Keanu in, is it?
That is indeed the thing with Keanu in. He's also done a cyberpunk thing called Johnny Mnemonic. Yes. Yeah, I can't say that fucking word.
I was when you said cyberpunk, I was going to mention that film, and then I remembered I couldn't say it either. So thank you for taking that bullet.
Damn it! But that in turn was based on a short story that was part of a much larger cyberpunk book trilogy by this author William Gibson. That's very cyberpunk that I actually really want to sit down and read at some point. And maybe, I don't know, I think it's because cyberpunk, more and more and more, is becoming very, very relevant to our modern day society. We're going back to that, like we talked in the beginning. The nature of the internet and information, but also corporate ethics and corporate ideology combined with the rapid onset of technology, the decay of moral society. These are the aspects of cyberpunk beyond, the cool mirrored sunglasses and the spiky hair and the leather jackets. That's basically the fundamental themes of it. And we're living it. We're living that right now. And it's not fun. It's not fun. It's fun to read about. It's fun to watch. You want to watch the fucking Matrix. That's fun until you get to the last two movies. But when you're living in that world, when you're living in a world of corporations siding with authoritarian regimes just to get more money in favor of individual civil liberties, when you're living in a world where net neutrality may become a thing of the past, and corporations basically owning people and owning that and all this sort of stuff, it kind of makes you feel a little bit, I could use a little bit of escapism. And some fireworks.
And some more fireworks.
And then you go to get some escapism, and it's more cyberpunk, and it's just like, oh god. Yeah.
I guess with Flux, thematically, the stuff you've talked about is, without saying too much, is definitely in there. I guess it hasn't got that cyberpunk style. It's not stylized. It's pretty grounded in terms of how it looks. But there is, the things you've talked about are all themes that run through the book. Definitely, particularly as the 4 issues go on.
Well, I mean, with those subgenres like cyberpunk or lots of things, it's not always about the aesthetic. It's also about the undercurrent of themes. Like some of them are a bit more tied a bit close to each other. Like another thing I really like is diesel punk, where that's very much that sort of industrial, sort of World War I up to World War II sort of aesthetic. But that also has themes of colonialism, imperialism, all that good stuff. Steampunk has nature of like empires and rapid observation of technology and society. And I'm very much into my genres. I don't know if that comes across. So, but it's all for me. I like the aesthetic, but I also appreciate a true adherence to the themes, and the themes of Flux seem to be very much of mystery, which is another thing I really like. There's a mystery afoot.
There is, which is why it's really hard to talk about the book. But yeah. Shall I give the kind of a bit of the premise? Shall I give a bit of the kind of background of the story?
Regale the capers with a general overview.
I shall. So, in the world of Flux, the US government kind of commissioned time travel in the 70s, and it happened. They managed to work out how to do it. That information got leaked.
I'm sorry. The US government was successful in developing technology? Yeah. Don't they outsource that sort of thing?
Well, I think they may have used some contractors, possibly not all local contractors, a mixture. There was no union, so it was fine. It was all fine. It got done. But that got leaked, as it would, I imagine. And then there were time terrorists who basically were traveling through time. That's a bit like Time Cop, I'll be honest. They were traveling through time.
So I don't think with Time Cop, they were time robbers. They just went back in time to steal like old gold and shit and other crimes. I don't think they used the word, at least not to my memory, which is notoriously bad, time terrorist. I don't think they use that phrase. I don't think anyone has used that phrase, again, to my knowledge. So if you're the first, well done on being the first, because that's too good a phrase not to use.
Yeah, I think you're right. I can give all of the credit to Steve. The initial pitch to me was had that in it, so I will defer to him. But I mean,
so they came close with Time Bandits, but it's not the same.
Yeah. We have time bands, but not time bandits. So so that's happened basically. So what they then do to counter this time terrorism, people basically changing things. They've started to notice the impact on everyone. Everyone's timelines are getting shifted. So hence the name Flux. So it's all like really uncertain. The effect on the time, everyone's timeline is the biggest issue caused by time terrorism. So
Because as someone who has travelled through time myself, I can
yes,
tell you it can get really confusing really quickly, especially if you try and destroy big corporations and it blows up in your face and you ended up in a dystopia nightmare future land. We won't go into it. But the thing is, I do find that interesting because if your personal timeline was changed, you wouldn't know about
wouldn't
it.
know about it. No, that is another big part of the story. So the idea is everyone basically, when they're born, is fitted with a time band that goes on their wrist, a bit of wearable tech, and that basically locks your timeline in place so no one can affect it.
There you
go,
baby Hitler. No one's going to be messing with you now.
See? Yeah. Oh, that's good for this idea for the sequels. Write that down.
I think Deadpool 2 beat you to it.
True. But I can go back in time and get rid of that film, so it's fine.
Do apologise. Cool. Side rant. Everyone talks about, if you could go back in time, what would you do? I go back and kill Hitler. First of all, harder to kill a person than you think. There's the moral aspect, the psychological aspect, but also like the actual physical killing them. Like, you think you'd just walk up and stab a person? No, even you could. But that's going to cause some problems. Definitely going to cause some problems. Do you want to end up in like a German prison cell in like the Edwardian era? I don't. So here's what you do for getting rid of Hitler. Here's what you do. You kidnap him as a baby. You take him to like Australia or somewhere far out in the middle of nowhere where no one's going to bother with him. Give him to a couple that want a baby but can't have one for whatever reason. Abandon him at an orphanage. Boom, job done. Like,
wait for the dingoes.
No, you don't even have to kill it. Like, you don't have to leave him for the dingoes. Just leave, unless he's raised by the dingoes. Dingo Hitler.
And then Dingo Hitler. That's another great idea.
The greatest menace to history that no one saw coming. But
Dingo Hitler.
But no.
But I think, I guess nature nurture. You got a big nature nurture argument going on there.
Oh God, I hate nature nurture arguments. I used to do psychology in school, and any time the conversation turned to that, it's just like
Because it's a combination of both. Well, that's not hard to work out, is it really?
Yeah, but
it's not the most.
But I mean, Hitler. I mean, if we're talking, but if we're going to talk about this, let's talk about this. Hitler was very much a product of his environment. The Austrian-German culture of the time was like, oh look, it's the Treaty of Versailles. Oh shit, now everything's terrible. Perfect environment for someone like him.
It's just a frustrated artist,
Yeah, plus the frustrated artist, all that sort of stuff. Like, I mean, he could just like do sketches in the Australian outback. No one will bother him. No one cares.
My other thing with everyone going, if I could go back in time, I would kill Hitler. Well, it's like, can you go back in time and guarantee where you'll go? Wouldn't you just end up back in time in the same place you are now? And that's long ago. How easy would it be for you to get to Germany? How could you get to Germany that easily?
I did a short film on that. I wrote a short film at least. No one steal this idea, it's mine. Where a guy develops a time travel device that moves you in time, but not space. So unless you are very, very careful with pinpointing the exact time you want to go, you will time travel, but end up basically trapped in the vast blackness of space because the Earth moves.
It's a valid point.
And it moves very, very fast as well. Like, we don't notice that unless you're a scientist and you're weird like that. But the Earth moves so fast that if you time travel by so much as a minute, you're going to end up in space, or the very least very, very high up in the air, or very, very much in the Earth. This
will serve all the flat Earth time travelers right.
Oh, no.
Well, that's probably quite a niche.
And the flat Earth time travelers are going to be the smuggest people, So
Dingo Hitler and the flat Earth time travelers.
Someone make this movie.
There's a Netflix show.
Well, they'll make any old shit nowadays, all starring that Noah Centineo guy. I don't know what his name is. I don't care. I don't care that he's in the new Charlie Angels movie. Anyway, Tall Girl. No. Moving on. No, actually, no, fuck it. So, I'm sorry to do this again for the second time in the row. One ran into the other, but fucking Tall. I know I'm not the last person. Have you seen this movie, Tall Girl?
No, I've seen a trailer for it, and that was enough.
So basically,
she's tall.
Yeah, no, here's the thing. There's this girl, and she's really, really insecure about her height because she's 6'1" in regular shoes. I'm sorry, I realise I may be speaking from a position of privilege here, but I am 6'2" without any shoes, and would have no problem going out with someone who was taller than me, and B, like, I mean, it's tall. Yes, it's tall, but it's not that tall, and she's dealing with lots of insecurities about it, both for herself and her dating life, blah, 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 blah. And it really seems like a lot of a non-issue, except for the fact that a lot of people are kind of mean to her about it, except not that often. And then it's a fucking stupid movie, and she's a horrible character, and it's... Oh, God, I'm not going to go into it because otherwise we're here all day. The problem is, like... Here's an idea.
Isn't she a girl from dance? I know this from my daughters. She's a girl from Dance Moms.
I don't know.
That's where she comes from originally, apparently.
What the fuck is Dance Moms?
Exactly. It's a reality show about the overbearing parents of kids who do dance.
Oh yay, more human misery for us to enjoy with our popcorn. Nom 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 nom, human suffering, nom nom nom. Was this made by Channel 4? I bet we saw it after that pseudo-documentary program about all those mums that try to make a porn movie. Moving swiftly on to something that I actually like. Flux. God. Okay. Good. So, first of all, based on what I saw, I really like the writing for this. It feels very naturalistic. Do you know what it is? It doesn't front load the exposition. It doesn't exposition dump you. It gives you just enough information for you to understand this world, barely. And then it leaves a bunch of holes to be filled in, presumably later, but also for you, the audience, the reader, to fill in the blanks with. I really like that. I like comics, TV shows, movies that provide you with just enough information from the get-go for you to just get a slight grasp on what's going on, and then basically said, okay, but make sure you pay attention as we go through, as opposed to these things that give you all the information, all the exposition, this is everything you need to, like, fill out an essay, do a pop quiz, like, refer to flashcards to understand all the various glossary of terms you need in order to understand what the fuck anyone is talking about. Or alternative, on the other extreme, those shows that tell you absolutely bugger all and expect you to give a crap. Like, no, I don't know whether I like you or not. I don't know whether I want to pay attention. So you've got to keep me invested. You've hit the exact right amount of equilibrium in terms of exposition.
There's nothing worse than someone going, but I've been your doctor for 5 years.
Oh.
Like, because whoever says that, exposition drives me up the wall, and it does, Steve. That's one of the things that we kind of bonded over when we started writing together. And when we write an issue and we're sending notes back and forth to each other, sometimes Steve will just put a comment on the Word document in capital letters with an exclamation mark, Basil exposition, which means I know I have to change it.
It is, in fairness, one of the hardest things to write, because we're taught in, like, film school and writing tools and stuff like that, and, you know, writing books and stuff, like, the audience is an idiot. You're gonna need to spell it out for them. But as I said, it is an equilibrium. It's one of the hardest things to write, or at the very least, actually no, I take that back. It's one of the easiest things to write. It's one of the hardest things to write well.
Well, yeah.
And you've really...
if you can have the knack of doing really good natural exposition where stuff comes out in the way that you would actually speak, then you are really onto something. That's what the best writers can do. That's what, you know, your Brian K. Vaughan, your Aaron Sorkins do that, David Mamet do that kind of stuff really, really well, to the point you don't notice it. It's when you notice it, it's when you're kind of pulled out of the story of going, you might as well just turn to the camera and go, hey audience, here's some information for you, and just put, which, you know, I'd almost prefer to do that sometimes than
it's the Spaceball things. Turn to the camera. Everybody got that. As I say, Brian K. Vaughan, I agree he was good in, like, in that sort of stuff in, like, Why the Last Man. In terms of what was that, Saga, unpopular opinion, I don't like Saga. I've mentioned this before, but maybe I just got turned off to it really, really quickly. But you talked about exposition. Like, he does good exposition. There's an early scene where, like, one of the main characters, like, the dad character, I can't remember his name because I don't care, the one with the horns, is just like, oh, I'm not going to take this sword out of my scabbard because I swore I would never take this sword out of my scabbard. Do you get that, audience? I swore never to draw this blade ever again in my life. 2 pages later, draw sword, stab, stab, stab. Just like, what was the fucking point of that? But that's... So I rant on Brian K. Vaughan over. I really do like his work, just not that. But anyway, thankfully, I think you're much better. I think this is very good. You've introduced this world, and I don't want to give too much away. I don't want to give too much away. I was about to go into, I like this, I like that, but we can't. It's one of the trickiest things because I am very much character focused. I am very much plot focused. And that's what I like to talk about and analyze, but I can't really do that without giving too much away.
Well, we can talk about the characters a bit. We can just that's okay. It's just I guess what happens in the issue is quite key to the rest of the story.
Well, there's a few main characters we can talk about.
Okay.
What are sort of I'm guessing our protagonist, at least the one we're going to be following for a while, is Detective Sarah Ramirez.
Yep, that's correct.
And she's your typical sort of. She's not a time detective.
She's just a regular homicide detective.
Yeah. Oh, now oh god! Now that I said time, did you ever watch that anime Flint, the Time Detective, when you were a kid?
No, I don't remember that.
Okay, so I'm so fucking glad I get to talk about this show at long fucking life. I've never had a reason or opportunity to bring it up until now. Flint, the Time Detective was a Japanese anime dubbed into English that I watched when I was a kid about this time agency that is basically run by this scientist guy who's got like 2 kids. These 2 kids travel in time and they unearth these 2 fossils and use their defossilization ray to bring about this caveman kid called Flint and his dad, except something goes wrong with the fossilization process with his dad, and his dad is now basically a sentient rock that they fashion into the shape of a hammer and turn into a hammer for Flint, the time detective caveman person, so he bonks evil bad guys over the head with his dad. Just painting an image for you there. And they go through time trying to find all these pseudo-Pokemon-esque things to bring back into the present and save from evil time villainous people. And there's a half vampire called Murloc Sholmes or something like that. And it's the weirdest fucking thing in the world, and I adored it when I was a kid. Go watch that. I think it's on YouTube. And it had the best theme song. Flint, the Time Detective. It's like, what the fuck is this, and how can I make my life all about it? But moving on. So,
I'm looking at IMDb as we speak. It looks as crazy as it sounds.
The evil villainess has green hair and drives around in a big, like, cat spaceship thing. I don't know. And she's also, like, the kids' teacher, like, pretending to be their teachers, like a disguise. I don't know why. It's a whole thing. Moving on. We'll talk about it all day. So that's Sarah. She's also got a partner, Mike McKinney, who we don't see that much of in the first
issue.
Issue. One character we do see quite a lot of, and seems to be quite a mysterious character, is Arthur Buchanan, who is spokesperson for these basically their equivalent of the Time Agency, the people responsible for dealing with time terrorists, called Purity Control.
Yes, now, that's right.
Purity Control sounds fucking ominous. It sounds like something out of The Handmaid's Tale.
Well, wait and see.
God!
It's controlling your purity. Wouldn't you like your purity controlled?
I want my hands off your purity, thank you very much. I don't know where they've been.
Go on.
Like time, can they call it like time control, timeline control, temporal control? Like in Star Trek, they've got like a temporal department, like for dealing with time-based shenanigans. Because let's be honest, every single starship gets involved in a time travel escapade like every other week in the Star Trek universe. So you're gonna have a time department in fucking Starfleet. But no, it's called Purity Control, and there appears to be something more going on. He's retiring at this point.
Yeah. So yeah, the point, he's been doing the job for 40 years. He basically goes around to schools, colleges, businesses, and just at first he was telling them why they had to wear a time band, and over time it's been just reminding them why it's important. He's like an educational figure, but also like thinking of like. We took influence from things like Apple launching product launches and TED Talks and stuff of like this figure that can stand in front of people and kind of but yeah, he's retiring.
Hi, my name's Todd Howard. Allow me to introduce this magnificent new bit of technology that we've introduced that 100% works and is not going to be microtransactioned up the arse. Fuck Bethesda. No, I'm sorry. Fuck Bethesda. I believed in you, Todd Howard. Like, oh, whenever someone did like stupid season passes or DLC or loot boxes or microtransactions, I'd point to Bethesda as the fucking beacon of how to do paid DLC right. Huge expansions, reasonably priced. Like, it was good for everyone, and you didn't have to get it if you didn't want to. And now look at you. You're a shell of your former selves. If I had the money, which I definitely don't, I'd buy the Outer Worlds, which I probably will do at some point when I get the money. But I'm not getting Fallout 76. I had a bad feeling from the start, and you proved me right on, Howard. I faked all my orgasms! Moving on.
Whoa.
You unlocked something. I do apologise.
Yeah.
So it's very much that sort of mindset, that sort of big tech sort of mindset. But it's large the government as well, which is scary.
I know. And the thing with him, he's retiring because he's not needed anymore because everyone basically knows that they're supposed to wear them. But it's also because they are launching Squid, which is a
calamari cannon.
It is. That's what it's called. Tempura control. It's essentially at the moment they all look exactly the same. But the new thing, Fitbit styly, is that you can pick the width, the color, different configurations so that your time band will look different from other people's. And you can have a standard one that's free that you get at birth, or you can pay to get different levels of customization. That's what's coming, which is why he's retiring, so that the new era of squids can be brought in.
Oh dear! Something that once was free is now getting lots of pointless updates that cost money. I wonder if I could do a rant about something like that I may have already done not 5 seconds earlier. Moving the fuck
But
on.
the thing is, well, they've made it so you have to have it, not only because you're told you have to have it, and you're like, I think it's like illegal, I think, not to have one. But also, as far as you're concerned, it's safety. If you don't have this on, you're not safe. Yeah. That's like a reoccurring theme in the book. Really, is you're not safe unless you're wearing your time band. So the upgrade thing is kind of it's their way of monetizing something that they know everybody has to have anyway. The other thing that in the story is that because of this and because they've kind of locked down things, other technology hasn't evolved. So there's no internet in this story. There's no social media. They're using big phones, an old school kind of. So even though it's well, not even that. We're talking landlines, big landlines. So even though it's set today, or equivalent of today, the tech hasn't really moved on since like the 70s, 80s. Once they kind of locked down the timeline.
I love that you mentioned that in the Kickstarter, but in terms of the comic, at least that I saw, you don't mention that. It's sort of something in the background, and that's something I really like. It reminds me very much of Watchmen and how the appearance of Dr. Manhattan influenced technologies. So, like, it's the 80s, but a lot of stuff doesn't appear to be very 80s-ish, like design of cars and stuff like that, at least in the present-day timeline. So present-day versions of that story, and I really, really like attention to detail like that, and it helps they got a magnificent artist working on it.
Yep.
Mason Barza,
yeah.
Mason Barza, sorry.
I don't know. I might be wrong. I've only ever seen it written down, so your guess is as good as mine in a way. But Mason Barza, I believe. So we met him on small commandos. Yes, like little tiny soldiers found him for us.
Small soldiers that no one wants to talk about.
Exactly the straight-to-video version. We Small Press Commandos, which is a Facebook group, people from all around the world that are basically trying to get into comics. And I'd been talking to him for a while about doing stuff, and then we got pitches I did to him, and I think his art style is quite timeless, and it kind of has got like a 70s vibe, which is one of that kind of helped influence the tech decision. Really, was actually, you know what, if the art's going to have this kind of 70s 80s, I almost wanted to feel like a 70s thriller look wise.
Well, this does also has a very sort of Manchurian Candidate sort of feel to it in terms of like the panel layout, in terms of I don't want to say cinematography, but because of the film background, that's what I'm going to say, cinematography. Yeah. But also, I think you're right with the timeless aspect. It seemed to me very modern and stylized, but also perfectly. It's one of those things. Like, if I were to think of the quote unquote, and do take this with a big old dash of salt, perfect sort of art style for a comic, this will be it. It's the right amount of artistry and functionality in order to properly tell a story in a visually engaging way.
Great.
In my opinion.
Yeah, but yeah, I agree. And it's shaping up really well. I mean, this is only issue 1 that's on the Kickstarter at the moment. And I guess the big worry always with a Kickstarter is, will it ever actually come? I've backed enough things where 2 years go by, 3 years go by, you get a message, that graphic novel we're going to do, it's now a 5-page story, but thanks anyway. Or Cyber Frog, which will never come out. Let's definitely not go into that territory. So the key thing for us is we didn't want to crowdfund too soon. So we've written all 4 issues, and Mason is currently doing art on issue 3. So assuming that we get to target, fingers crossed, hopefully, then will be sending stuff out pretty quickly, and then we'll be getting issue 2 up on Kickstarter too, and then hopefully we can have a trade out by the end of next year. That's the plan.
Well, you seem to be on track of that. You've got a £1,000 goal. And so far, at time of recording, you've raised £672. You're 67% of the way, with almost a month to go.
Yeah, so... in the first 5 days, we had a good start. That's always the thing, though, with crowdfunding. You have a spike at the start, a spike at the end, and then the middle is the bit where I'll probably be very anxious, where it kind of just flattens out. You kind of get a flat line effect. And I think you've got to be a reasonable percentage for people to bother to back near the end, because quite often people go, oh, I'm just going to back that, but it's only on 30%. I'm not going to bother because it's not going to get there anyway. So it's a difficult thing, and you've also got to keep promoting it, but you start over promoting it, and then you just come across like a shill that you're just constantly going, buy my thing, and people just start muting you.
Yeah. Well,
which
in that
is
case,
never
I
good.
shall do it for you. Buy this
Thank
thing.
Thank you.
It seriously, Gavers. I mean, having just read issue 1, I can tell this is going to be a very interesting story. Obviously, I can't go into all the reasons why, but I mean, I'm a sucker for a mystery. I really like mystery stories. I really like big, huge conspiracies. I like that sort of stuff. When it's fictional, when it's real life, it gets a bit, oh, come on, you didn't need to do this. Just be honest, you fucking assholes. We're not going to get into that, because then we're going to be here all fucking day talking about the state of our society. Oh, yeah. God.
That's one of the reasons I like to write stories like this, is because I can pretend it's all just fiction. This is definitely a release. A lot of my writing tends to be about this kind of thing because of the very reasons you've just said.
Yeah, and I haven't seen a lot of your other comic work, but I did, however, manage to see a short film you did for the BBC.
This is true. About a couple of years ago, there's a really good scheme here called It's My Shout for first-time writers and directors and performers. So I submitted an idea to that. Got through, went to the BBC writers' room where they kind of narrowed down the choices, and then got made a film called Packaged. About 2 years ago.
Which is not about porn actors, as I thought so at first.
No,
but
it's not.
I was slightly disappointed, to be perfectly honest, but it's still good.
It's my kind of. You can tell I watched a lot of Tarantino when I was a teenager, because it's. Oh, and actually, there was a time when I realised that everything I wrote wasn't linear. And ironically, this time travel story is one of the first linear stories that I've worked on.
Yeah, this doesn't feel the package doesn't feel like a Tarantino story. It feels more like if Christopher Nolan tried to do something Tarantino-esque.
Okay.
Which I kind of like, actually. How long ago did you make that?
About 2 years ago. Yeah, about a couple of years ago.
I'm going to spoil it, because you restrained me on Flux, so I get to spoil this. Guy working in a bar, gets asked out, steals a bunch of money from the till with the aim of putting it back eventually, but it turns out people owning the bar are very nasty people, so he has to go and deliver a package, get it, because it's in the title, and gets hit by a car on the way, but realizes, oh shit, something really bad is going to happen if I don't deliver on time, goes and deliver it, it seems like everything might be fine, but the package got slightly shredded and opened slightly when he got hit by the fucking car. And then inside the package is a bunch of photographs and a gun, which the main bad guy takes out and presumably shoots the protagonist in the face with, though it cuts away rather quickly and abruptly, so we don't quite see it.
Yeah, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. So actually, there's with this scheme, there's a big screen premiere that it was for all the films on it, like 10 short films. And the lead actor won an award for Best Actor. And he came up to me and said, "Oh, so just it's like a really open ending. Did he shoot him or not?" And I'm like, "Yeah, just you can tell me." And I went, "Yeah, he shot him." And oh, it's a shame.
I mean, people generally speaking don't attach a silencer to a gun and then point it at someone's head if they're just having a laugh.
No, this is true. Well, the original version of the script, there was not the package didn't open on the way. So originally, I just thought, they're just not very nice people. Then actually, he was delivering just the gun. So the thing the idea was that life can be so shit that even if you do the right thing, it can go wrong. So basically, was that he was caught robbing for the till, so they made him deliver the package. But the package he was delivering was the gun he'd then be shot with. But I was actually working with the director, and he's like, "I don't really buy that they would just shoot him. He's only nicked a few quid." I said, "Well, just some people they want to send a message." But we worked through it with the director and the producer, and they were like, "I think we need something more." So the photos was an additional thing that the director put in as an idea, and that was originally written as a short comic, but I never got it made, so I changed it into a film script.
You hear that, kids? If you can't make a comic, make a movie.
Yeah. But the original version of the script, there was another version of the script as well with a lot more cycling, lots and lots of cycling. But there's not that much cycling. I did have
the technical aspect, like the camera angle you had when the guy was cycling, where he's like bloodied after being hit by a car. That was really well done. That looked cool.
That took a lot of work. I was on set. I went on set for one of the 3 days that they were shooting. I'm sure I was in the way because they said, "Oh, you could have this cameo. You're like Alfred Hitchcock. You could go over there and you could be a guy walking through the park, walking past him as he's cycling towards you." 10, 12 takes of that with me in. Get to see the film at the end. Am I in the film? No. I think it was a way of going, because my day job is in visual effects, so I work in film and TV anyway. So I think for a first-time director, it's like, "Yeah, get that writer. Can you just get him to go over there somewhere, out of the way? Stop meddling. Stop rewriting on the hoof."
So
it was fun.
You never have a walk-on part. Have a sitting part or a standing part, like a fucking Danny Wallace in Yes Man. He's just there at the bar. He's talking to someone in the background. See him, don't see him. It's fine. It's not that big a deal. I had something similar happen a while ago. I was asked to be an extra in a short film, and I won't give away too much, but it's a rather good movie. But we're at a swimming pool, and we were meant to be like adult, like dads or something, at a swimming pool talking, and then someone yells something from across the swimming pool, and everyone else is supposed to look over there immediately at the guy. Here's the thing, though: the guy, myself, and the guy I was with didn't know we were supposed to look at that, and we definitely didn't look at that because we were not told by the assistant director to do that. So we thought we were going to be in the movie. We got cut out of it, and you could sort of see our heads slightly in the background of one thing. And when the director's like, "Yeah, well, you guys didn't look over when the person shouted the thing, so we had to cut it." It's like, but we weren't told, and we didn't receive a script. So, we didn't say Guy A and Guy B looks over there when, someone shouts. So, that's on you. It's not on us, it's on you.
Yeah, it's a tough life.
It is a tough life. Oh my god, I get invited to be part of short films and stuff like that, and they don't give me proper direction. Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up.
What's my motivation?
What's my motivation? You are man at swimming pool. Deal with it. Oh god. And I acted. Me and then the guy I was with, who was friends with, we made mimed talking to each other and engaging. Nice. We sold it. We were the best goddamn extras ever. We didn't steal the scene or anything. We were just there talking in the background. But that's it. That's all the direction we got. So it's not on us. It is a tricky thing. Oh god. And so you mentioned some of your other work as well as Zach Ridley.
Yep.
What's the full title of that?
The Intergalactic Adventures of Zach Ridley.
Was Zach Ridley named after Ridley Scott by any chance?
A little bit of Slam Ridley, a little bit of Ridley Scott. The son of my co-writer. I co-wrote that as well, actually. That's the first thing I co-wrote. That was quite different, actually. That was the person I founded Orangutan Comics with. At the time, he had a plot and just asked me to write it. So I wrote the story. It was the first comic pretty much I ever wrote, I think. I wrote the full series, and then a few years later, went back and forth with different artists, and then he essentially went So it's a weird thing for me because I know the original script and I know what the book is like, and it's kind of this. To the audience, it's just a story. To me, it's like this weird hybrid of kind of what I was doing with his idea and what he ended up doing with his own. So he probably put more humour in than I did originally, but I was quite strong on foreshadowing. I can remember there was I was like, oh, this thing happens in issue 3 that we don't really know about before, so I should do some foreshadowing. I know I'm saying that like it's some sort of. I made that sound much more.
Well, it's very
impressive than it
ominous
actually
words.
is.
Foreshadowing.
It is foreshadowing.
3
yes.
shadowing, who cares?
Exactly.
5 shadowing, too much. But 4 shadowing, ooh, that's just the right amount of shadowing.
Yeah, it is.
And you've done 7 Shades, Gutter Magic. Now, I'm a big fantasy nerd. I was very interested to see that Steve had done a bunch of fantasy novels that I kind of want to get into, but I've got other fantasy novels that need reading.
They are very good, and I'm not just saying that because he's my friend and co-writer, but like, you know, Brian Hitch reads listens to the audiobooks of Steve's books when he's doing his art, which kind of blew us away when he get notified. He's like, yes, there are audiobooks. Wow. So yeah, but there's 6 so far, all in the same universe, and actually 7 if you include there's a novella as well. But it's it's really good. And what he does is kind of they're all fantasy, but he kind of shifts genres slightly on each book. In kind of like subgenres, which you went to mention genres before. So like, one's almost like a detective story, but in a fantasy world. It's really, he's a clever man. I always say he's like I think very visually because I come from kind of screenwriting background and into comics. Steve's much more kind of plot driven and because he comes from novels. So yeah, we do. And I couldn't write a novel if you paid me. Well, if you did pay me, I probably would write one.
It might not be a good one, but you do it.
But I just think I just don't have the. I don't think I've got the patience or the vocabulary for prose.
It's weird. So I've tried on multiple occasions to write novels, and I could do a novella, maybe. Like a short couple of pages, boom, done, short story, Jeremy Archer, whatever. Only good, because fuck Jeremy Archer. Was it Jeremy Archer? Yeah, it's
You fucked Jeremy Archer? No, Jeffrey Archer.
Jeffrey Archer, that's it. Jeffrey Archer, no.
His evil brother. His more evil brother.
He's the one who really wrote them. It's not Jeffrey Archer's fault at all. I was on a trip with my family once, and my parents, because they were driving, they decide what we listen to on the radio, and they put in like an audiobook of a Jeffrey Archer book, and we only listened to one story, and it was a story about this guy, this sort of middle-class guy, droning on about his life, his boring fucking life, and how he and his friend started working in like finance and stuff, and in the same clubs and stuff, and then got the same similar wives and stuff, and then started getting similar mistresses and stuff, and just like, oh god, kill me now. This is the most boring, pointless naff I've ever heard in my life. God damn. So I don't really like that, but maybe that's why I prefer the fantasy novels. And but as you say, I don't have the patience for that sort of thing, and it just takes a very particular kind of writer. However, that's not the only thing you've sort of complimented each other on. You've also collaborated on another podcast, Bags of Action.
We do have a podcast that's been going for a few years now. So Steve does a show called Grouchy Old Geeks, which is formerly known as Comic Book Outsiders, which I was a listener of, which is one of the ways I met Steve. But then we did a Predator special, I think. It was a spin-off from Geek Syndicate. And then the idea of Bags of Action was supposed to be me and Steve and 4 other people as rotating hosts. We did one episode which didn't feature me and Steve, and we've done about 70 when it's been the 2 of us. It went from being this rotating host thing to just being the 2 of us, but it's good. We kind of mix up between I'm a old cheesy 80s action movies. Steve's more of a thriller guy, I would say. So we kind of, and he's not as into martial arts and B-movie stuff as I am. So we watch a film. I mean, when we first started, the episodes were often longer than the movie because we would literally go through it beat by beat. We kind of don't do that as much anymore. But essentially it's just, we both watch the film, make notes, and then just chat about it for a bit, like as if we were in a pub. It's a very British way of approaching a podcast.
See, that's so different from what I sort of do. I do sort of tear things apart and I analyse it. I do tend to go through the plot as we go. But mine less about a conversation and more about, listen to me! Listen to me! Everyone listen to me! This is shit! This is shit! This is okay! And here's why! And whoever is forced to co-host or be the guest on the podcast with me is just sort of forced to listen to me, and maybe if I'm, in a generous mood, I'll let them interject and give their own opinion, even if I do immediately discount it. I think I prefer your way. Your way sounds much nicer, but it's who I am. I'm not going to go away from that. And you also do like very short sort of reviews. I recently listened to the you just released actually just today one on Terminator Salvation, timely considering the release of Terminator Dark Fate that I haven't seen.
It's almost like it was a plan.
Almost
like it was a plan. Yeah. So we started off doing the full length podcast, and then over the past 6 months or so, we've started doing. If either of us basically watch an action movie on our own rather than doing it together, we'll just basically, when we finish watching it, stick the mic open and just talk about it for 5 minutes and say what we saw. And we give them scores. We give them a number of bags of action out of 5.
Ooh.
But it's very difficult because Steve won't allow half bags, and a lot of films deserve a half. But a difference between a 2 and a 3 is quite big. So between a 3 and a 4 is huge. So between a 4 and a 5 is even bigger. I know it's not, but you know what I mean. It's like a sliding scale.
You try carrying 5 sacks of potatoes compared to 4,
Yeah, exactly. And so I often want to give a half score, and I can't. So I spend most of my time agonizing of whether to round down or to round up.
I mean, I don't. I mean, my personal style is I don't give scores out of whatever, because that's just not the way I do things. But I'm always very interested in how people do quantitate those sort of things. And
it's bloody hard.
It is very hard. That's part of the reason I don't do it.
Yeah, the other thing is, because it's bags of action, people go, but there wasn't that much action. You give it 4 bags of action. I've weighed the action in that film when there were not 4 bags of action. And it's like, well, it's not just about that. It's kind of like a balance of all the things.
It's a metaphor.
It's exactly. But there's some films like, if I'm sitting down with my proper film critic's hat on, I probably wouldn't give Highlander a 4. But if I'm watching it enough, I enjoyed it enough, it gets a 4. But then sometimes you go, well, hang on, I gave that a 5, so this can't be you end up starting to almost backtrack over the stuff that you've scored in the past. Yeah. It's very difficult.
Well, that's okay, because your opinion is allowed to change. But I'm glad you brought up Highlander, because here's something I want to say. Another unpopular opinion. I have so many of those, goddamn. I think Highlander should be rebooted or remade, whatever. Because here's the thing. I like Highlander. I like the original movie. It's a lot of fun. It had some problems. For example, the grave decision to cast a Frenchman as a Scottishman and a Scottishman as an Egyptian pretending to be a Spanish person. Like, no! You really... No!
How do you... This is a standard question we have when we have guests on our show, is how do you say the name of the star of Highlander?
Christopher Lambert?
There you go. See, Steve would be very happy with that, you see. Because I say Christophe Lambert and get mocked a great deal. But I'm like, but he's French.
Hey, you know what? If he wants to come over here and pretend to be Scottish, I'm going to call him by a fucking anglicised name. True. But that's not the only... Here's the thing, though. Highlander, though, is such a brilliant soundtrack. Obviously, we all love Queen. But also, it's got great cinematography, like the sweeping styles, the beautiful transitions from the
some of the best transitions of any film. I think the way it goes from the under the water and then into the fish tank, for example, which doesn't sound that epic when I say it out loud, but
it's made all the better when you know that final scene between the Highlander and the Kurgan was filmed on an office chair that was just kicked across the room in the middle of that empty warehouse. Once you know that, it's just like, holy shit, how do they make that look so good? But then you're confronted by the fact that the plot is kind of good on the bare bones level. But when you get into the details, here's the thing that annoys me. The rules of being an immortal. Okay, so you can't die by, bullet or sword or disease or old age or anything like that. But if your head gets taken off, it's over. And then the person who killed you takes all your life force, your energy, and they get stronger. How stronger? It's kind of weird, but that's the tip of the iceberg. Even worse, though, is the rule that you can't fight on sacred ground. Why? Is there... what? Okay, so is this a rule, a guideline, a law, or a physical limitation? If the Kurgan tried to fight in a church... would he simply not be able to, not physically able to? Or is he just that much of a good guy that he's going to evade by Scout's honour? He doesn't seem like the kind of guy who would have a strong adherence to the rules. And they And who came up with this cockamamie rules anyway? And don't give me that whole, they're aliens from Zeiss. We don't talk about the sequels. We do not talk about the sequels.
My horrendous confession, these days I wouldn't do it. I'm very much a must watch the start, watch things in order. But when I was a teenager, I was like, oh yeah, get ready. And someone said, I want to see this film in the cinema. It's called Highlander 2. And I'm like, oh yeah, everyone loves Highlander. I've never seen it. Yeah, I'll go and see it. I saw the sequel first in the cinema.
That's not the worst thing in the world. I wouldn't recommend that for Highlander. But you know what? When I was a kid, I watched Back to the Future in reverse order.
I watched so did I.
Yeah, it's so weird, isn't it? It was and it didn't diminish the experience at all. I didn't know who Marty was and who Doc was when I watched the third one. But I didn't mind because it was a fun movie. And I think it's better that you watch them in order. But they're good enough movies that you can enjoy them.
Bizarrely, there was a person I worked with. It was in my first job, like a teenager. And I went to see Highlander 2 with him and Back to the Future 3. And that's just very odd that I just went to see sequels to films I'd never seen before.
Yeah, well, if they're good enough movies, they'll stand on their own.
It's true. It's true. But Highlander 2, I was like, well, Michael Ironside is in it, so it must be a good film. And I waited a while, and then I bought the VHS, that's how old I am, of the first one and watched it and went, oh, okay, I need to wipe my mind of what I saw. I need to take it away and forget it ever happened.
But this is why I think it should be rebooted. Keep the stuff that works, the great cinematography, play around that, the soundtrack, you could do updated versions or whatever, but focus more on the plot and the details and the characters, and maybe have some more appropriate casting. I live in Scotland, I live in Edinburgh, there are lots of people who could be a Highlander. There are lots of people here, and not Gerard Butler, get someone good. You can do that. Christopher Lambert was a fucking... Christophe Lambert, sorry. Was a fucking unknown at the time of Highlander. You could get a Scottish unknown as well. Fuck's sake. And then they went and did the TV series with... what was his name? Paul Duncan or Duncan Paul or whatever his name was. It was fucking English. Okay, slightly closer than France, but still a wee bit off, guys. Gah! So remake that. But there's one other thing. One other action film. Here's the thing. I don't want to get all pretentious, but I'm not that much into action films. I like action, it's fine, but I'm very much more of a character and plot person. One action film, though, that I think is really interesting to talk about. I don't know if you talked about this on Bags of Action or if you've seen it, and if you ever do want to talk about it, I'd be happy to come on and talk about it. You ever seen that film Shoot 'Em Up?
Yes, I have seen Shoot 'Em Up.
Thoughts?
I really don't like it.
I was not expecting that. You betrayed me, Pete.
It's the one with the breastfeeding in it, isn't it?
Oh, I don't remember. There is a baby in it.
Maybe I'm sure there's a breastfeeding fight scene.
Oh no, it's a sex fight scene. No, I think there is also a breastfeeding fight scene. It's been a while. Yeah, here's the thing. I think Shoot 'Em Up did what John Wick did before John Wick did it. That's why I think it's interesting.
Okay.
Because it very much feels like the action in this movie isn't just a set piece, it's an actual character in the movie. And the director really tried to make it as interesting and engaging as he could. Really focus on the artistry of gunplay. And there's so many different cool aspects to it. So I was just interested to see, as someone who's more into action films, what your take was. I'm
tempted to watch it again because it's 2007, but it says here they were loosely taking inspiration from one of my all-time favourite films, which is Hard Boiled, John Woo film.
Yeah.
So maybe I should give it another try. Occasionally, I'll revisit something and go, actually, I didn't get it at the time, but I do now. So we'll see.
Possibly. I think it's because John Wick has become such a phenomenon, revitalised the career of the person we mentioned earlier, Keanu Reeves, who oh God, Keanu Reeves. I don't know what to think about Keanu Reeves anymore. I used to know exactly what I thought about Keanu Reeves, in that he's been in a couple of good things, but overall is kind of shit. And now we're just thinking who are you, you beautiful bastard?
See, I'm one of the few people I was there for Point Break. I was there for Parenthood. My biggest frustration with him was how he forgot how to do the voice in the second Bill and Ted film. It's why have you stopped? Why have you stopped playing the part? It's really weird.
And why are you trying to do a British accent in Dracula? No, that's not what we sound like. Stop it. No, Keanu, no!
This will be a spoiler if we ever do Speed on Bags of Action, but I think that is the most overrated film
It's
maybe
fine.
of all time.
Like, okay,
It's not. I never got why it was so popular. I really don't understand it. Never have. And I like Keanu Reeves. I'm a big fan of Point Break, and I like that kind of stuff that he does. But I never really got the it's Die Hard on a bus with the lady from Demolition Man. Never got it.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, who turned up for the sequel, but he didn't.
Yeah, I've seen that as well, mind you. Yeah.
Oh God, there's a hell of a tangent we went on.
That's true.
Okay, so I want to go back to the Kickstarter for a second. You've had some other reception of Flux on the Kickstarter. Some pretty big names. People have worked on some truly interesting stuff. Mike Collins has been on there. Nicole Boos, Ryan K. Lindsay, Jim Gibbons, Victor Bogdanovic.
Yep, Bogdanovich. Yep.
Sterling Gates and Robert Williams. People have worked on things like Judge Dredd, Suicide Squad, Flash, Batman Arkham Knight, dear God. People work for Dark Horse, Marvel, Millarworld, lots of good stuff. And they're all basically all along the similar lines, which is good comic. Yes, like it.
Yeah.
And so that must be pretty awesome to hear so many big names in the industry say it's so great.
It's been it has. And particularly as we didn't, even though we've got more issues, we only said read issue 1. We're not going to tell you where it goes. We just want you to have the same reaction as to somebody who backs the Kickstarter and just reads that one issue. So, it was very, very good to have such a positive response, definitely.
Because it's one thing when a weirdo like me, who someone mistakenly gave a podcast to, tells you your comic is good. When someone who used to be a former editor at Marvel says, this is good, that's a good seal of approval.
Yeah, I like to think so, yeah.
Absolutely. And this also, for what it is worth, however much it is worth, also has the Podcaper seal of approval. A link in the show notes, Capers. Go to the Kickstarter and check it out and give him your money. Demanding. I love the fact that I get to say that. Attention, people! Give this man your money! I like that I get to do that. That's fun for me.
It's good. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed you doing that. Thank you.
Not a problem. I very much enjoyed reading Flux. I'm interested to see where it goes.
Well, anyone who... I will do the plug now. Anyone who backs at the highest level will not only get issue 1, but they'll get a few pages from issue 2 as well.
All the incentive you need, Capers.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, as I said, a link in the show notes. Please check that out. I promise you it's worth your time. On that note, we're going to end the show. Thank you very much, Pete, for joining me today.
No problem. Thank you for having me on.
And if you enjoy the show, Capers, please tell your friends, shout it from the rooftops. And if you haven't already, go back and listen to some of our other super episodes. Like a few weeks ago, we had Dave Taruso on talking about his comic novel Alter Ego. Check that out. And you can listen to the show on iTunes, Podbean, YouTube, Spotify, or at podcapers.com. If you want to get in touch with us, suggest show topics, or maybe come on the show yourself, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at AP2HYC, or email us at podcapers@ap2hyc.com. Thank you very much to Dan Harris for our logo, the lovely microphone with the red and blue 3D glasses, those are mine. And thank you for listening. This has been Podcapers, the official podcast of a place to hang your cape. Cue the music!